And, I think they lose the Bears.
A minority report from Illinois, housing priorities costing taxpayers, the center square at the White House, and America's talking. This is the Center Square Daily for Thursday, June 4th, 2026. I'm your host, Greg Bishop. As state houses across the country continue their work, some have adjourned for the summer. The Illinois General Assembly wrapped things up Monday at 5 in the morning after being there the day before at 10 in the morning. Our team was there for the long haul. Illinois legislators passed nearly 400 bills this session. That includes Illinois' largest state budget in history, featuring another round of tax and fee increases and also legislator pay increases. They also advanced bills dealing with rideshare worker unionization, regulations on e-bikes, measures loosening who's eligible for in-state tuition, and an extension of the swipe fee prohibition, and that's tied up in the courts. Joining us to react to the end of session and what Illinois taxpayers may expect for the months ahead is Illinois House Minority Leader Tony McCombie. Leader, thanks for taking time with us here for the Center Square Daily. I want to start with House Speaker Chris Welch and something he had to say about the majority party's priorities standing alongside Governor J.B. Pritzker Monday morning.
We're in the midst of an affordability crisis created by, I believe, the worst president in American history. The things that people are focused on are the things they're talking about at their kitchen table. How do they pay their electric bill? How do they pay their grocery bill? Those are the things that are top of mind to people.
Leader, does this budget make running state government more affordable for taxpayers?
No, absolutely not. And it's interesting that he talks about affordability while standing there in front of the press room and forgetting to mention that he paid himself, not only with a pay raise, but a reappropriation for $40 million for Proviso High School.
Leader, obviously a lot of issues were discussed during the budget process, but not really until the last 48 hours. Talk about the transparency for taxpayers, and are they getting a fair shake when it comes to these final days and hours of legislative session when you guys go into session starting way back in January?
Yeah, and the week before, we were in for only 64 minutes during general session. And, when you're talking about transparency, we have none. And unfortunately, those of us that have been in a few years are starting to get used to, and you as well, this isn't your first session, having this be after midnight. But the other thing is that there was no real hearings. They were only subject matter. We've had advocates and taxpayers down to Springfield for 6 months now, and they don't know where their line items are going to be or if their priorities are going to be met. And here you have the budget in the House passed at 4:13 in the morning, but you had the budget implementation bill passed before that, the revenue, the tax increases before that, the capital before that, completely out of order. And certainly a lack of transparency. And that's why people don't trust government. And it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be. They keep talking about, well, there should be no concerns or questions because the final budget was 99% the same as the governor's proposal from February. Well, it certainly wasn't 99%. And when you're in a committee room hearing after midnight and saying, well, another amendment's going to drop and we're just going to take that right to the floor, that's not transparency at all.
Leader, obviously Republicans are in the super minority at the Illinois State House. Did any Republican priorities advance in this budget?
Oh, sure. There always is. Education funding, bringing back the 50 million through the EBF for schools for property tax relief if they so choose to apply. The payment for pensions is certainly a priority. And you heard President Harmon say, if we stay on this path, no more pension holidays or sweeteners, we could be at a 90% funding by 2045. That might sound like far away, but we're in such a hole right now, at least we can see an end there. So those are a couple things certainly that are a priority for us. Before we even were willing to even have conversations about negotiating or collaborating on a budget, one of the priorities that has to be removed from the budget is the funding for HBIS. That's the healthcare for illegals and non-citizens, as well as welcome centers. I mean, there's close to $200 million of funding for folks that are not residents of Illinois, paid for by residents of Illinois. So before we even get that far, we have to make sure some of those things are removed, and they weren't.
Now, obviously, this is the largest state budget in state history, $55.9 billion, includes a series of new tax increases. One of them sticks out that impacts consumers is the tire tax that goes up to $2.50 for a tire. When does this stop? I guess is one thing I think taxpayers may be asking. Is it seems year after year after year, it's hundreds of millions of dollars of different kind of taxes here and there, and things that are going to impact corporations, but also are going to impact small businesses, and tax increases on gasoline, even though there's a penny and a half that's going to be saved per gallon for 6 months of this budget, that's still set to go up in this budget year that's upcoming. How do we get to a point where enough's enough?
That's a great question, Greg, and one that we often ask. Every year I say this is the biggest budget in history. Every year I say we're going to continue to nickel dime, including this year. So the last 2 years, we're now at $2.8 billion of tax increases under this governor. In the last, excluding this budget, there's 57 new tax and fee increases, and it really is nickel diming. And I find it interesting, and I never usually hit President Harmon. It's not my house, but he made a comment about how humans people are not going to be taxed in this. And he's talking about the social media platform, the crypto, the fantasy sports, the digital, the prediction markets. Well, humans use all of these, and humans will pay the price that's passed on to them from the companies. So to say that taxpayers aren't on the hook is completely false. And there has to be, at some point, they realize there's no additional dollars for tax increases, fee increases, diversions of dollars, especially with the road funds, which I don't know how deep you want to get into that or not, but I think that's, especially with gas prices so high, is certainly at top of mind for everybody. But at some point, it's got to stop.
Well, and I think, that's a good kind of segue, because obviously gas prices are high. And for months, it seems that the governor's been asking about suspending the gas tax to provide some kind of relief, or addressing the sales tax that's on top of the gas tax. But all we got was that 6-month suspension of the adjustment that happens every July 1st, tied to inflation to the gas tax. What else should have been done with that?
Yeah, well, we were calling for a pause on the sales tax. And as you are aware, there is a sales tax on top of our gas tax, so a double tax. And those funds were originally supposed to, be going to our road fund. Well, this year they decided to divert $150 million from the road fund because of this surplus, because the high amount, rather than give it back to the consumer or even pause the sales tax. They're like, well, let's just go ahead and put that into the general revenue fund, and they can spend how they want. And some of your viewers might be saying, well, wait a minute, the road funds, I voted for a constitutional amendment putting gas tax into a lockbox. Well, the loophole is this is a sales tax on the gas tax. So they feel they can, again, slight the folks that voted for that, saying, hey, we want roads and bridges, and then spend it the way they want. They could have been like Indiana. Here you got a guy who's possibly running for president. Why not be like Indiana politically and say every month, I'm pausing the gas tax, I'm pausing the sales tax, and run that for the next 6 months. But instead he says, no, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pause the 1.3 cent that's going to save you and your family $5. Thank you for the cup of coffee. But we're not going to pause the sales tax portion of it, where that is real money that could be a savings, especially when the Democrats have been running all year on affordability, and when they have no idea what that means.
We're talking with Illinois House Minority Leader Tony McCombie here with the Center Square Daily, getting reaction to the end of legislative session. Almost 400 bills passed. One big question that was not advanced, at least in the House, was the Senate's version of the Bears deal, which the House had passed, a mega projects deal. Here's what Speaker Welch, had to say on Monday.
We need to continue our work on AI regulation. We need to continue our work on affordability. We need to continue our conversations on the Bears Stadium question. I know in the House, we need time to review the bill that came over early this morning. We need to know, where do the Bears stand? We need to take the time to get it right.
Leader, do you anticipate there may be a special session called this summer?
No, and you're hearing that from the governor as well as the Dem leaders as well. And I think they lose the Bears. I don't want to be negative, but they had real opportunity. They hold the majority in the House and the Senate and hold the constitutional offices, and they couldn't sit down at a table together with the Bears and work this out. A mega projects bill is so much bigger than the Bears that we passed over, and it wasn't perfect, but we were under the understanding that it would come back. There would be the property tax protections in there, which is what we wanted, and would really help spur investment in Illinois and help the Bears at the same time. But that didn't go far enough, and the Senate couldn't get the votes they needed. So they come back with something different, kind of similar to what other states have done in these kind of situations. I'm assuming it would have given the Bears the property tax certainty that they were looking for, and then it would have given the locals the power to get this deal done. But here we are. Session's adjourned. I don't think we'll be going back until veto session, which is going to be the week after Veterans, so 2 weeks after the election. At that point, I think the Bears will already have made their decision. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, even the governor was asked about a possible special session, and while you may not anticipate the House or the Senate to call one, he does reiterate here that he's got the power to call a special session as well.
Well, I know that the House has said that they're going to continue to work on this over the summer. I think the question of a special session is a question really for the legislators and not for the governor here. They've got to come to an agreement about something or other, and then either one can call a special legislative session. I can as well.
Leader, what should have been the priorities at the State House? I know you've had members talking about public safety issues, and even the governor months ago seemed to be open to the idea of addressing questions about the no cash bail provisions in the Safety Act. How do you get those things across the finish line, being in the minority party?
Well, we continue to advocate for them. The number one concern in Illinois, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, is property tax. And when you're talking about affordable housing, which is a priority or stated to be a priority of the governor, reform our property taxes. I've been there. This is my 10th year. I think we've had 18 different task forces put together to study this, and no legislation has come out of it. The governor and the majority party want to continue to blame local officials for the high property taxes, but yet we're undercutting our locals, whether it's the cities, villages, or school boards or community colleges, all the things that you see on your tax bill. So we're given no choice locally but to raise taxes, and it shouldn't be that way. We should stick to our agreements and go forward so we can work together. And there's things that they could do, and we offer solutions, and we'll continue to offer solutions. We'll continue to expose and oppose bad policy. We'll continue to work with rank and file members to make a bad bill better, and we'll certainly continue to be their checks and balance when it comes to process.
House Minority Leader Tony McCombie from the state of Illinois, greatly appreciate you taking the time with us today for the Center Square Daily.